We are looking at an aerial view of Lodge Bog. Lodge Bog is a small part of the much larger Lullymore Bog that surrounds the island of Lullymore. Lullymore is most unusual in that it has 21 kilometres squared of really good agricultural land surrounded by raised bog. The Lodge Bog is to the left of the R414, the Allenwood to Ratangan Road, just before Lullymore. With the Turf Development Act in 1946, Bord na Móna became a statutory company. Production of sod turf took off on Lodge Bog. The German bagger machine was used from March to late summer to produce large quantities of sod peat. For the next nearly 40 years upwards, the 2 million tonne was produced and delivered to nearby Allenwood Power Station from this small bog. If we cast our eyes to the west of this photo and closer to Lullymore, we see a completely different landscape. This is a large area of raised bog. The greater portion of this was gifted by Bord na Móna to Irish Peatland Conservation Council. The IPCC purchased some more bog from local owners who have 35 hectares of raised bog. The narrow gauge railway line that delivered both Lodge Bog and turf from Ballydermot ran right through the centre of the Lodge Bog. We now follow this line through Allenwood and Lullymore level crossing and on its way to the swing bridge over the Grand Canal. This was an unmanned crossing. The local driver or his helpers would walk up to the crossing and hook the gate and swing this 7 or 8 metre gate to block the road and do the same on the other side. By the time the loco and 10 to 14 wagons would pass through and then the gate closed, a motorist would have a 15-minute delay. This was not the first gate on this stretch of road. When Major Bromwell Murphy owned the island of Lullymore in the 1800s to 1932, a gate existed on this road. A tax had to be paid to enter or pass through the estate. Research shows that a Mrs. Smullen was the gatekeeper. We now move along where the old railway line led to the swing bridge on the Killina bank. This of course was the bridge that carried the rakes of turf from Lodge and Ballydermot bogs to the power station, and when raised allowed canal traffic to pass through. This was always called swing bridge, while similar crossings are called drawbridge. With drawbridge, one end is hinged on one side and using pulleys the other end was raised into a vertical position. With the swing bridge, a whole platform 8 or 9 metres by 2 metres was raised vertically using rakes and pulleys, all operated manually. A gillman from Killina was the first keeper of the bridge. A small little man called Mickey Reedy from Bennett's Bridge, County Kilkenny, but living in Robertstown West, was synonymous with the swing bridge at Killina Bank. As well as operating the bridge, he supplied dried or burned sand to local drivers. They used this to improve traction on ascending stretches of track and at bends where speed had to be reduced to avoid derailment. To the left here we have Timahoe-Dreed railway line coming into view. The composition of Lodge Bog and Timahoe-Dreed was quite similar. A light brown turf with ash content of 2.5% approximately. Ballydermot turf was more black, heavier and very low ash content, sometimes as low as 0.5% but with higher heating value. In Allenwood then it was more desirable to have a blend of turf from the tree bogs. In spite of this at times, the ash content was so low. The high furnace temperature burned and melted the grate links and caused costly outage to replace damaged grates. We are getting into the area of the power station site. This land was purchased from local landowners, namely Jim Regan, Jim Callan, Walter Sullivan and local farmer Tom Dowling. ESB paid £50 per acre to the owners. At a rough guess it would cost 1,000 times more for 1 acre of land today along this road. Yes, €50,000. Construction of the power station began February 1949, first set commissioned January 1952, second set commissioned September 1952. At outset, the useful life of these boilers was 25 years generating. Around 1970-71, ESB were preparing employees for station closure. However, the outbreak of a Middle Eastern war that led to an oil embargo. The boilers were completely refurbished. The chief executive of ESB stated to the station staff, "You're ready to go for another 20 years. It generated electricity until 1992 and closed in 1994. The cooling tower was demolished in 1997. It is worth mentioning that all through that huge construction project, the building of the cooling tower up to 280 feet high and 200 feet in diameter, the construction of the generating station, generating electricity, a most dangerous product for over 40 years, that no life was lost. We thank God for this.